Good evening. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Victorville and the City Council sitting as the Library Board of Trustees, Southern California Logistics Rail Authority, Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, Victorville Redevelopment Agency, and the Victorville Joint Powers Financing Authority and the Victorville Water District. First item on the agenda is public comment. Do we have anyone wishing to address the council? All right, seeing none, we do have closed session. I'll have our city attorney go through that.
Thank you, Mayor McEachran. We do have on the agenda 5 closed session items, all of which are pursuant to Government Code 54956.9 A. Sorry, 4 of those are. The other one is pursuant to Government Code 54956.9 B3A. And just want to note for the record on item number 2, there is a typo, and it indicates the facts and circumstances need to be disclosed. Actually, it should read need not be disclosed with respect to item number 2. The case names and the parties to each of the items of litigation are set forth fully on the agenda. However, in addition, staff is asking for the addition of 2 additional closed session items which would need to be added pursuant to Government Code 54954.2B2 on a finding that the need to agendize these items arose after the posting of the agenda and there is immediate need. The first concerns litigation by and between Carter Burgess and the City of Victorville. That is case number RIC 503565. Legal counsel representing the city on that case found out today that there is a settlement conference coming up June 22nd. However, on June 7th, which is the day of our next meeting, they need to file with the court documentation as to the strategy on how to proceed with that settlement conference. Hence, we need to get direction from you as to strategy prior to June 7th. Also, the second case deals with Susan Wallace versus the City of Victorville. It is case number CIVVS 1003662, and the attorneys found out today that there is a settlement conference scheduled for June 1st, so we need direction with respect to those items. So both of those, both the information related to those settlement conferences came to our attention after the posting of the agenda, and we do need to get direction prior to the June 7th meeting. So you need to vote to approve them, and then we can add them to the agenda.
I'll make the finding. Second, if anyone.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Those have been added.
Thank you. To the extent there's any reportable action, we will report it at the conclusion of the closed session.
All right. We will now move into closed session. Good evening. I'd like to reconvene the regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Victorville and City Council sitting as the Library Board of Trustees, Southern California Logistics Rail Authority, Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, Victorville Redevelopment Agency, the Victorville Joint Powers Financing Authority, and the Victorville Water District. We did have a closed session, and I would ask our city attorney to report anything out of there.
Thank you, Mayor McEachran. There is some reportable action as a result of the closed session. We added 2 litigation items to the closed session pursuant to Government Code 54954.2B2. The first was litigation between Carter Burgess and the City of Victorville, case number RIC 503565. In that, the council, by unanimous vote 5-0, agreed to designate Doug Robertson as the city's designee for settlement conference purposes. The second added item was litigation between Susan Wallace and the City of Victorville, case number CIVVS 1003662. Again, this was a 5-0 vote, this time to designate Chuck Bouquet as the city's designee for settlement conference purposes. In addition, we had the proposed settlement. It was subject to final documents coming back to you. for properties on the La Mesa Nisqually interchange between the City of Victorville and Victorville I-15 Partners. The agreement was to settle the purchase of 121,485 square feet for the settlement price of $875,043, and then that was a 4-1 vote with Ms. Valles voting no. And then we had two further additional settlement proposals for Lamar. One was for the Porter billboard. These are all listed on the agenda. It was a 3-1 vote with Mayor McEachran abstaining and Ms. Valles voting no to settle for the Porter billboard for a sum of $396,500, and settlement of the Eagle billboard acquisition. Again, a 3-1 vote with Mayor McEachran abstaining, not actually recusing himself, I'm sorry, on those two. He recused himself from participation in that discussion, and Council Member Valles voting no. That was a 3-1 vote to settle the Eagle billboard for $732,500. Those are the portable actions.
All right, thank you. At this time, we'll have our invocation and pledge of allegiance. Our invocation is to be led by Minister Curtis Green from Burning Bush Church in Victorville, and our pledge of allegiance will be led by Girl Scout Troop number 182. So if you continue to stand after the invocation is led, they will present the colors and lead us in the pledge of allegiance.
We can bow our heads and close our eyes, please. So, Lord, we come today, Lord God, first just waking us up. Thank you for waking us up today, Lord God, for giving us another chance to get it right in your eyes, Lord. Lord, your word says that we should pray for those in authority over us, Lord God, those leaders, Lord. So we pray today, Lord God, that these leaders who have accepted public position, Lord God, in the city of Victorville here, we pray that they have good health, Lord God. We pray that you protect them, Lord God. We pray that you would give them wisdom, Lord God, in all their dealings, in all they say and all they do, Lord. We ask this in Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
Color guard, attention. Audience, please rise. Color guard, advance. Color guard, post the colors. Will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready, begin.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, for which it stands, God, indivisible.
Color guard, retreat.
Good evening, and thank you to the Girl Scout troop. That was a wonderful presentation. They did a wonderful job. I know they're already outside of the building here, but if we could give them another round of applause, they did a wonderful job. The pleasure this evening of presenting a proclamation for Public Works Day, and accepting this will be Daniel Welborn and Erica King. If I could have them come forward. I know you have this coming up next week on June 2nd, and all the schools and elementary students enjoy participating in this, and so I would like to present you both with this proclamation and maybe have you talk a little bit about that day for us.
June 2nd is Public Works Day. We actually have 300 students coming in from the surrounding schools, and we teach them such things as soft skills and things that are related to their job to give them an idea of the things that we do in the city and for the public, and also as something that they may aspire to be.
All right, well, thank you. On behalf of the Victorville City Council, we appreciate everything that you're doing in our city in public works and keeping our streets safe and clean, and continue to do the great job you're doing. And I'm sure the kids will appreciate it next week as well. So let's give them a round of applause. Okay, we'll now move into agenda item number 7. This is public comment. I do have several cards. Tom LaFortune? I studied. Hey, my last name's hard enough, so...
Yeah, how you doing tonight? I just want to say that you can thank the progress of the city of Victorville on 3 women. One is Doris Davies that passed away, I think it was last year. She did more for this city than anybody sitting on this council at any time. Brooke Edwards for bringing out the information to the city, to the people that live here, when everybody's sitting up there saying everything's a bed of roses, and it isn't. When you have the IRS and the FBI and everybody else, it is not right. And Ms. Velez is doing an excellent job. And I don't understand how you can afford to buy 300 brand new golf carts when you're talking about layoffs. Can anybody justify that? That's what I thought. Unbelievable. What you have to do, though, is you have to get that overpass built because the money's been spent before. You can't raise it again. There's no time left.
I apologize, I'm still getting used to this new agenda, but I should have our city clerk present the agenda because that is a new format we are following. So at this time, I'll have you do that.
Thank you, Mayor McEachern. The City Council of the City of Victorville welcomes the public's participation in tonight's meeting. It is requested that all present please silence cell phones, pagers, and other electronic devices, and that personal conversations be kept to a minimum during the conduct of the meeting. Persons who wish to address the council on a specific item which appears on the agenda are requested to complete one of the white speaker cards that have been placed on the agenda table in the council chambers lobby and give it to the city clerk for the record prior to consideration of the item. The mayor will call upon each individual who has submitted a speaker card when the item comes up for discussion by the city council. The public comment period is the time and place for the general public to address the City Council on any item within their jurisdiction that is not on the agenda. It is requested that a speaker card also be submitted to the City Clerk for anyone who wishes to address the City Council during the public comment period. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.3, state law prohibits the Council from addressing any issue not previously included on the agenda. The Council may receive testimony and set the matter to a subsequent meeting. Comments are to be limited to 3 minutes per speaker or less, as deemed necessary by the Mayor, depending upon the number of individuals desiring to speak. All communications are to be addressed directly to the Mayor. Individual comments to council members, staff, or members of the audience are not permitted. Individuals who fail to adhere to these guidelines may be asked to yield the floor. Any individual or group who engages in disruptive conduct during the meeting will be removed from the chambers by order of the Mayor. Disruptive conduct includes, but is not limited to, addressing the council without being recognized, not addressing the subject before the council, repetitiously addressing the same subject, failing to relinquish the podium when requested to do so, and verbal outbursts or comments from the audience. Thank you for your cooperation and adherence to these rules. All documents to be considered for approval at this meeting are before the council. Following are the revisions that have been submitted for tonight's agenda. There are 2 items concerning item 31, request from Supervisor Brad Mitzelfeld and from the town of Apple Valley. Those items have been placed on the dais. These items are in support of the contract for the La Mesa Nisqually Interchange Project. And those are all the items that I have.
Thank you, and that's to answer your question as to why we did not respond. We cannot respond when you bring that up during public comment. Moving on, Julian Portier. Portier?
Hello, members of the council. My name is Julian Portier. I'm a resident of the city of Victorville. My wife and I moved here 7 years ago, and one of the main reasons we chose to live in Victorville rather than the other cities was because of the schools in this city. My son is preparing to go to kindergarten this year, and my wife, who has a degree in child development and psychology, spent over a year studying our son and what schools he would best teach him. We found 2 in the city of Victorville, which we thought was good due to the fact that we live well within the boundaries of the city of Victorville, and none anywhere else in the high desert. We went out, we got out there at 2 o'clock in the morning like a lot of parents do, and we were able to get our children enrolled in both of the schools that we chose that would best fit them. Unluckily, we live about 100 feet from the border of the Adelanto Victorville School District. And we live on the Adelanto side, which came to our attention after we enrolled our son, regardless of all the years of research we did. When looking at a map of Victorville, you will see that about a quarter of the landmass of the city of Victorville is within Adelanto Elementary School District. We figured this wasn't a problem since we fulfilled the requirements for an interdistrict transfer, so we applied for one. Keep in mind we have no problems with the Adelanto School District. They just do not have the proper tools to teach our son. The Adelanto School District denied our request. They ignored their own policies in order to do so. They decided that they would not allow anyone to be granted an interdistrict transfer unless an older sibling, was already in the Victorville School District. Our son going into kindergarten is our oldest child. This may seem like a district, state, or county problem, but it is a city problem. One of the major deciding factors pertaining to a decision about moving into or out of an area are the schools within said area. If people living in Victorville think that they will have their children sent to a school district for a city miles down the road, they will not move to the city, or they will move out of this city. People leaving and not moving into the city will harm this city's economy. If you bring this information before whoever's in charge of these policies, and tell them that this will cause a problem for your city. They may not change the boundaries, but they may change the policies. One of the policies that should be changed is to allow people who live within the city of Victorville to be automatically granted interdistrict transfers to go to the school district of the city that they live in. Most people deal in the realm of common sense, and if you were to ask a person, if you live in the city of Victorville and your child lives in the city of Victorville, would they go to school in Victorville or to school in Adelanto? 90% of the people would answer that their child would go to school in Victorville. And the true answer is, it depends. This is a big problem. I think it needs to be looked at. And if you have any questions, see me. Thank you for your time.
Janice Williams.
Hi, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Janice De Jesus Williams. Julian Portier, who just spoke, is my adult son, and his two young boys are my grandsons, age 5 and 2. I have 6 grandchildren. My husband Charles and I are residents of Victorville for the past 8 years. We own a home in Victorville behind Silverado High School and pay property taxes. My husband and I are also business owners in Victorville and pay business taxes as well. And again, as I said, I've lived in Victorville for the past 8 years, and I like it here. When we purchased that home, the real estate agent told us, oh, and look how close the schools are. Silverado High School, the middle school, a walking distance, Discovery School, they're all walking distance. When my children were younger, they attended Moreno Valley School District, and when they went to junior high, I homeschooled them from junior high on. When we moved to Victorville, when Julian was attending college in Humboldt, California, as a wildlife biologist, my youngest daughter had already graduated from high school at age 16 and was attending Victorville College when we moved here. Since my 3 children were out of high school and in college, I did not experience firsthand the school system here and was not aware of the boundary lines. The real estate agent told me these would be your schools if your children were that age. My son and his wife wanted to move their family close to us. They knew about the schools here. They wanted to live close to my husband and I, and they've lived here for over 7 years. During the housing crisis peak, it took them almost 8 months to purchase a house in Victorville, and we were blessed that they purchased one very near to us. It was a struggle because of the foreclosures and short sales. We never imagined that we would run into this school issue when they joyfully purchased their home. It took them 8 months to buy a house in Victorville because of all the short sales. Education has always been vitally important to our family. My parents, my grandparents, their parents before them stressed the good education was a priority, and we've passed that on to our children and our grandchildren. Julian and his wife Excel worked very hard to find the best public education they could give their sons and to meet his special needs. My daughter-in-law worked 5 years to get a double degree in psychology and child development so she could be more knowledgeable raising her sons. Although my concern today is for my grandsons and their education, I'm also deeply concerned and troubled about the process here in the high desert. What makes it so difficult for someone to transfer their child to a school of their choice in their own town? After following all the rules and procedures and waiting on long lines to get my grandson into a Victorville school of their choosing, his parents have been given the runaround. They have been treated rudely on the phone and in person by school staff and administrators specifically. They have been lied to and put off time and time again. For example, one of the administrators was standing having coffee and talking to someone. My son and my daughter-in-law said, "Oh, sir, we'd like to speak to you about this," he goes, "Oh, I'm busy. I'm going into a meeting." Things like that. They have followed every instruction and guideline and have been discouraged every step of the way. Finally, excuse me, please, is there no better way to get reviewed and approved if you need to move your child within your school district? If we can't get the proper attention to our plight, what about those people that have special needs and cannot communicate due to language or other barriers that they may have? It is very frightening when your own public servants are so unwilling and unwilling to assist you. We respectfully ask that this process be reviewed and some modifications be made as soon as possible, as there are deadlines established by the schools to get your child enrolled, and even more importantly, there are children with needs. Thank you very much.
Eric Vincure.
First of all, I'd like to thank you guys for your service. I appreciate it very much. What I have to say is very simple. Since a lot of people have moved into the high desert, especially from down below, they seem to have a propensity to run stereos at extremely high volumes. I've had to have the police come out several occasions when someone with a party over 2 blocks away was making so much noise with their stereo that the interior of my house was vibrating with their bass. What I'd like to request the City Council to do is adopt an ordinance that would be similar to the one in Hesperia, where the police come out the first time, they warn them. If they come out a second time, there's a major fine. This is a bedroom community. I know a lot of the people here commute down the hill, and a lot of times they're disturbed, for sleeping purposes. And my wife and I are very early risers. And I had one occasion where the individual's party went on till 4 o'clock in the morning. It took that long for me to get it shut down. But I'd appreciate your input or change in this direction for the City of Victorville. Thank you.
April Pinkston.
Hello. I would like to ask the City Council to consider, as this gentleman said, to adopt the same music ordinance as Hesperia has. I just recently moved to Victorville almost 3 years ago, and prior to that I lived in Hesperia, and I worked for the Sheriff's Department, and since moving here, if I call the deputies out because the neighbors are playing the music too loud, they will go and ask them to turn it down, but as soon as the police leave, they turn it right back up. And the police tell me that in order to enforce that, then I have to file a citizen's arrest, and then I have to let them know who I am, and I have to come to court. Well, as a single woman in the city of Victorville, and just recently being the victim of a near in-home invasion robbery, I do not wish to start Armageddon with my neighbors. And then when I do call the deputies out, and the deputy tells me, well, I think that music is reasonable. Well, I can't go inside my house with all the doors and all the windows closed with a swamp cooler on and hear my television because my neighbor is having a party. And in the city of Victorville, it is my understanding that if I call, I am not the victim. The city of Hesperia is the victim, and they take issue with those people, and if they get called out, again, they get a steep fine. And it's just recently gotten worse in this last year. And when you can hear stereos coming from 3 blocks away, I mean, it's just getting a little ridiculous. And I don't want to fight with my neighbors. I work hard. I'm a teacher in the community. I come home. I want to enjoy peace and quiet. And I don't think that my request is unreasonable. And I do not want to have to, I don't want my neighbor to have to know that I'm complaining, because I've been put in situations where, the neighbor is not very it's like, well, what are you going to do? So I've just gotten to the point now where I want the police to protect me, and I have rights. I'm a taxpayer. I pay property taxes. I have a right to enjoy my property without being disturbed. So I would really like to ask you guys to consider adopting that same ordinance. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Vicky Cabrialis.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I have repeatedly tried to make contact with Councilwoman Angela Valles to discuss the manipulative lies that you have been putting out in the paper, and you refuse to reply to me. It's become personal, stating that wrongdoing has been done since the day Rudy and I got married. That was in 2003. You came on the board in 2005. You sat on the board for years. As a matter of fact, you put together my contract. You signed my checks. You knew exactly what I was doing. If you are such a law-abiding citizen and all this wrong has been going on, why didn't you say something a long time ago? Why now? You're a liar. You need to stand up and face me and tell me what I'm doing wrong. And that goes for anybody. If you know something is being done that should not be, isn't it your responsibility as a public servant to say something? But you know, you forgot where you came from. You forgot who invited you to become part of the community. You forgot what was the impact that State Hispanic Chamber conference you went to when you said that opened up your eyes and helped you realize what difference you can make in the community. But you know what, Angela? You need to really wake up. Because if you're a public servant, you wouldn't text me, but you hope that the grand jury would take over the city of Victorville when you ran on the platform that you wanted to do what's right for the citizens. By lying and making accusations to people, my husband and I, who helped you, you used to call me and cry because Logan and Dan, your previous boss, wasn't doing what you wanted. You wanted Rudy to talk to him. Have you forgotten who was there for you? You're a poor example of a public servant. But the definition of a politician is a blood-sucking pig, and that's what you are. And I'm speaking as a citizen here, not as the president of a Chamber of Commerce.
Raymond Herrera and Robin, you'll be right after him, and guess what? You guys can address Rudy all you want, because she got to address Angela, so I'm going to allow it. Because you've been doing it for the last several meetings, so go right ahead. Because you were going to do it anyway.
You're absolutely right.
I know I'm right. Why do you think I just allowed what happened to happen? You wouldn't listen to me if I asked you to.
I don't listen to anyone. All of America knows that. My name is Raymond Herrera. I'm president and founder of We the People, California's Crusader. I'm here on two specific issues. The first is in support of my dear friend and the only legitimate council member up there, Angela. This attack on Angela by Rudolfo's wife is uncalled for. You spoke to this matter the last time we were here. That guy spoke to me after you gave him instructions. I got a little bit of news for you. You're not a dictator. You're not a monarch. You have the Brown Act. I can talk to him, her, him, anybody I want. When you violate the people, you will get the wrath of the people. Okay, the first thing I want to speak to you about is the Fair Political Practices Commission and Rudolfo and his wife that was just up here. There is a reason that I do not allow Spanish billboards. Adrian Insurance is a good example. They sell insurance to illegal aliens under the nose of the American people. That man That woman got a sponsorship from Advantage Insurance. We had a booth at the big event this weekend. It is a conflict of interest. It does not have to be based on commission. She's salaried. She benefits by her salary. I don't care about your limit, your $5,000 limit. When you betray the people, you betray the people. Be it for $1, $5, $500, $5,000, it is a betrayal. And it goes to the integrity of the party politic of which you're a member. And you, Mayor, should you really be the mayor? Protocol in Victorville is the most votes gets to be the mayor. That was not you, but Rudy plays you people like a puppet. There's no democracy in the city of Victorville. It's a dictatorship by him. If it's not him, it's an aristocrat by you. So, Angela, the people of Victorville want accountability. We want our body politic to be moral, one of integrity. We want democracy. The second issue that I'm here to address is, last time we were here, Rodolfo invited the Americans into his event. We went there and we celebrated America. We had 10,000 Americans pass by, 10,000 horns went off. A few went off by Hispanics, Rodolfo's people, who are doing things that people shouldn't do in the streets. But anyway, it's on video, people of Victorville, and listen to me good. Go to the archives and watch Rodolfo invite these people on the campus event of Hispanics, Latinos, illegal aliens, and their immoral supporters. We went there and Rudy called the police and had the Americans escorted off the taxpayers' campus while he and his cohorts take gobs of money and collected gobs of money to educate illegal aliens who don't belong here. The students that are illegal aliens in the curriculums in your schools and your colleges, they're the ones that are going to displace your children when they're bilingual with an American education. It's their father and their mothers that displace the working mom and dad. Democracy is what we want. We want Angela. God bless.
Robin?
Good evening. My name's Robin Vidston, and I am going to hand in a packet tonight to each council member our photo report from our Celebrate America rally we held in front of the Cinco de Mayo Festival. And as Mr. Herrera said, by the citizens driving by, we had great response. Some of the festival goers flipped us off. I've got a photo of that in my report I'll be handing in. In addition, we would like to know, the city of Victorville, your logo is prominent on the billboards. How much money did the city expend on this festival? This was held at the People's Campus, a community taxpayer-funded campus. And from what I can tell, the school newspaper said there were 65 exhibitors, and according to the website, you pay between $5,000 to $1,000 to exhibit. There was a lot of money made on the People's Campus. Where did that money go? We would like to see a full reckoning. Why was the High Desert Hispanic Chamber of Commerce allowed to use the People's Campus to make thousands and thousands of dollars? That's our question. And we would like to see in the next agenda exactly how much the city of Victorville expended on this event. An event to celebrate another country's heritage, not our own country's heritage. Again, I'm going to hand in a photo report, and we're requesting, I have not seen it anywhere. I did a search in the newspaper on the website, how much the city of Victorville expended. Again, on the billboards, that seal is everywhere. What did we spend? Thank you.
Felix Diaz?
Felix Diaz, 14180 Montecito Place, Victorville, California. I just want to make mention of a couple of things. all the years that Raymond Herrera and I have been butting heads, I have to say that I agree with one thing that he has said. He said it on the newspaper. He said that the Cinco de Mayo is not celebrated as much in Mexico as it is here in the United States. Obviously, he doesn't know why, and I think a lot of you don't know why. Is there anyone here that knows why it is celebrated more in Mexico, or should I say here in the United States? Let me tell you why. It's because it's more an American holiday than it is a Mexican holiday. It's not even a Mexican holiday. It commemorates the Battle of Puebla, 1862. And if you really realize and read history, you'll find that the reason why it is more of an American holiday than it is a Mexican holiday is because had it not been for this battle, today we would probably be speaking French. Why? Because at that time, the United States was having a civil war, the North against the South. The French were totally supporting the South, not only with arms, ammunition, but with fighting men, and they had a pretty stronghold in this continent. They were well established in Quebec. They were well established in Louisiana. They were well established in the Guianas. And so they were helping the South with the hopes that the South would win the war. And when the South would win the war, they were going to invade North America. And they were going to take over the whole area. This is something that is more new in history. We were not taught that history when we were kids. We didn't start teaching this history until about 10 years ago. That's the reason why people don't know this. Again, let me reiterate that had it not been for the Battle of Puebla, where the Mexican insurgents totally defeated this strong army of French that came into the city and to the state of Puebla, they were totally defeated. Had it not been for that battle, and Abraham Lincoln, by the way, was a good friend of Benito Juárez, the president of Mexico who had been ousted from Mexico. He allowed him to train his troops in El Paso, Texas. He could not help them with arms and ammunition or with men, but he helped them with arms and ammunition, or should I say he helped them with giving them the authority to train in the United States of America. People don't believe this history before they go out half-cocked, saying all kinds of stupid things that they say about the Spanish language, about illegals, and all that nonsense. They need to study history before they go out, like I say, half-cocked, with all their cohorts spinning lies and making things very miserable for the American people. I rest my case. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Aaron Korn.
Hi there, my name's Aaron Korn. I'm a Victorville resident and small business owner. At the last meeting, the redevelopment director, Metzler, provided an update on the EB5 program, and in light of that update and some of the subsequent discussion, I have a few comments to make regarding the program. I want to start by saying I have no reservations in claiming that I'm biased, and I have a fundamental problem with the EB5 program in general. The prospect of giving away American citizenship in return for a $500,000 loan just doesn't sit well with me. However, it's a legal federal program, and the city had every right to pursue setting up a regional center. On the other hand, it's quite clear that the city's implementation of the program came short in meeting the USCIS's requirements. During the last council meeting, Councilmember Rothschild mentioned that he feels that the feds terminating the program in Victorville was an incredible injustice to the community and the entire valley, and that we've done nothing improper in any way at all, and that there was no reason why the USCIS took this action. The evidence contained in the USCIS's termination report paints a little different picture. In Mr. Metzler's report at the last council meeting, it was reported that $6 million in loan proceeds still remain. That means per the terms of the program, 120 direct jobs should have been created with that $6 million. In the termination letter, the city itself admits that only 12 direct jobs would be created by IWWTP. The termination letter also made the point very clear that the jobs created by the Dr. Pepper, Snapple bottling plant and Plastipac were purely incidental and did not qualify in the total job count. So considering this information, I think it'd be reasonable to think that the city's limited partner in this endeavor, Buck Johns and Inland Group, should have known what qualifies as direct jobs. After all, they were paid hundreds of thousands of dollars, including $50,000 processing fee every time an investment was made, and apparently now also when they're being refunded. And you'd think we were paying Inland for their expertise, which leads me to ask the question, isn't Inland Energy liable for some of the losses and costs that the city's incurred in relationship to the EB5 program? It seems to me that an appropriate action of this council would be to seek some restitution for the costs the city has faced due to our failed implementation of the regional center. Thanks.
Margie Simpson?
Good evening, council members, Mr. Mayor. If I had a hat, I'd take it off to show respect, but I don't. My name is Margie Simpson. I live at Gold West Mobile Home Park at 15252 Seneca Road. The reason I'm here to speak with you is that the management at the park has informed me that the city had approved a blocking of an access gate leading to Attella Street, which is a street that runs alongside of Gold West, goes down to Hook Junior High. My grandson, uses that gate on a daily basis to get on and off the bus. On May the 13th, he was unable to use the key to unlock the gate because he had it blocked. On the 16th, I went to the office to inquire why they blocked this gate. They told me that the city had approved the blocking of this access gate. I asked them why they didn't notify us. They said they didn't have to notify us. I'm getting a little frightened, I'm sorry. I'm a little concerned because we only have two gates that exit out of the Gold West Mobile Home Park. There are over 600 cars, and I can imagine with 600 cars trying to exit out the front of our mobile home park would probably be a riot similar to the 1965 Watts riot. When they yanked a man out of a truck and beat him, they took bricks and broke women's cars, and they assaulted people. I would hope that we never had that kind of a situation here in Victorville at the Gold West Mobile Home Park. But with 600 cars going through two gates, I just don't know how that's possible. I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you. I realize that this is a personal problem, but I was told that the city did approve the blocking of the access of the gate. Thank you.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. I'm actually going to, although this is someone's wishing to testify on agenda item 18E, which is under consent calendar, going to ask Jonathan Vanderloop if he'd like to come forward at this point in time and let us know his thoughts on that item.
Mayor and City Council and fellow citizens. My name is Jonathan Vanderloop, 16885 Crestview Drive, Victorville, California. And I'm here to represent the High Desert Racquetball Association and myself, and strongly oppose the proposed closing of the racquetball courts. I'd like to point out that your racquetball courts are the only public courts in the whole High Desert. the closure of these courts, one would have to drive down the hill to play racquetball or handball. In addition to that, they would remove a draw for people and businesses to move to the city, since that'd be one less activity available to people. And it also will remove for youth one more activity, and that would keep them out of trouble. So what we have done is we've gotten together with the High Desert Handball Club, and we are now working on a cooperative plan to come up with a system of volunteers, etc., to make the operation of these courts be revenue neutral, which I understand is the requirement to keep them from being closed. And our main items that we're looking at right now are having challenge ladders, having leagues, tournaments, youth programs, school programs, volunteer programs, and then a adjustment of operating hours and fees. And what we would request is the opportunity to meet with, have our committee meet with Mr. Cox and I think it's community services people to work out a plan before a decision is made to close the only public courts in the High Desert where people can play racquetball and handball. And I don't know if you realize it or not, but a lot of us get a lot of entertainment and also exercise that way. And it's a long drive down the hill to play racquetball. It'll take you longer to drive down and back than it will be to play. So a lot of exercise will be lost, and a lot of activities and a lot of opportunities for gainful enjoyment will be lost if the City Council chooses to shut these things down. And the other thing I would like to point out, that these courts are already in existence, they're already operating, they're already in condition to be used. So once you shut them down, who knows what's going to happen to them. And also all of the players, etc., that are presently going there will have to go to find something else to do. And so it won't be easy to reopen them again. So we would like the opportunity to meet with City Council, Jim Cox and the community service people, and try and come up with a plan before a decision is made by the council to close these courts. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think it'd be appropriate to say you don't need our permission. I think the door to City Hall is open.
Yeah, as I've said before, everything's on the table, and if you can all come up with a plan to help address that issue and keep those facilities open, I think that would be great. So I would hope that staff would go ahead and work with them. That is all the public comment cards I have at this time. Anyone else wishing to address the City Council under public comment?
Leah Cantrell. Actually, I came here just to listen and observe. I'm a small business owner also, and I'm Vice President of the High Desert Black Heritage Committee. I heard some comments here that kind of was disturbing to me. One comment was about Cinco de Mayo, which sort of sounded to me like it shouldn't be celebrated. It should be celebrated just as Juneteenth is celebrated by African Americans to show that the freedom of the slaves. Just like St. Patrick's Day is celebrated by the Irish. Huck Finn Day is celebrated here in Victorville. I went to Cinco de Mayo. I had a good time. Also, there's still Christopher Columbus Day that's still celebrated by everybody all over the country. So, to me, that was a comment that sounds to me like it should have been back in the 60s. This is 2011, and everybody has the right to celebrate their heritage, no matter what nationality they are. Also, I heard another comment regarding motorhomes, where someone lives in a motorhome park, and she's thinking that there will be a riot, as comparing problems to a motorhome park to the LA riots where a white man was pulled out of his truck and beat. I've been in Victorville 10 years, I have never seen anything like that happen. Living anywhere in the United States, there's a problem. Just being African American is a daily struggle, so comments like that would make it even harder for decent citizens, law-abiding citizens in Victorville, such as myself and my family and friends. That would make it hard on us. And I feel like, I don't know, I feel for the young lady for her problems at the motorhome park, but I don't feel that the LA riots should be compared to any problems that she has. I think there's a lot of really good African American people here, all races. To me, since I've been in Victorville, I have enjoyed living here for 10 years. I have participated in just about every community event and organization because I feel that we need to come together just like we do at the Spice of Life, where different cultures come together and enjoy themselves. And I just felt led to say that. I am a Christian, and I do believe that people should love each other. And the differences, try to settle the differences without hatred. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Carmen Rocha, and I am from El Pescador Restaurant. And I'm here, I humble myself before you because this is a great privilege for me to come and speak tonight. And my topic will be mainly about forgiveness and restoration between Angela, Mr. Cabrales, and Vicky. I have just joined the Chamber of Commerce, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, a few months after I arrived here in Victorville, which is 2 years ago. And coming from Ohio, Toledo, Ohio, we don't have a lot of the Hispanic community like we do here, very strong, family-oriented. And till this day, I believe I made the right choice to come to Victorville. Victorville is a lot like Toledo. The thing that I love about Victorville, it's multicultural. Over there, I never really, there were a lot of the Hispanic people, mainly, but it was multicultural. And I love that about Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, that Vicky and Mr. Cabrales, they have multicultural meetings in there, and I love that. And the last time I met with Vicky and Miss Angela Reyes, it was over at the restaurant. We had a meeting about they were planning to help the young people, to train them, to give them a hope in the future. And for the past 7 years, my heart has been turned over to helping the widows and the orphans. The fact that I lost my mother 20 years ago, and we had 6 kids to raise. The baby was 3 years old, and the oldest of the 6 was 13. And we raised them between my brother and me. My brother Martin he works in the law enforcement in Toledo, Ohio. And we did the best that we could. And coming here, it has been like another level for us to enjoy our life and to enjoy the future. And the great thing, this is the promised land. I came from Mexico. This is promised land. Over here, we can go to the grocery and get anything we want, anytime we want it. Open 24 hours a day. I love Victorville. I love everybody. Like my sister said, she's a Christian, so am I a Christian. I was a very strong Catholic, which I said, but I promised that I was born Catholic and I was that Catholic. I will never turn. And I didn't turn from being Catholic. I only became more knowledgeable about the Word of God, about the power of God, about the promises of God that He has for us. That He created the heavens and the earth and everything in it is for us to enjoy it. He doesn't need anything. And the thing is that I've been praying, and I'm going to tell you, I've been fasting for 3 days. Because it breaks my heart how Angela and the people that I look up to for the past 3 years are not getting along. And really, guys, my whole family moved to California, moved to Victorville. This is awesome. We have beautiful sunshine, and Toledo is depressing. There's no sun over there. It's always cloudy. And, now they came, and we hear people come to the restaurant and say, have you heard about the riots? No. I don't read the paper. I don't have time. And I had the mayor from another town come in yesterday to the restaurant. They have dinner. And he said the last time I was here, I came with Mr. Caviali for a meeting. And he said, he's a great man. He goes, I really have a lot of respect for him. And I said, I do too. Because that's all I know for the past 3 years. The Hispanic Chamber of Commerce with Angela and them. And my prayer and my hope is that in the Catholic Church we pray that our Father is forgive us as we forgive those who offended us, who have sinned against us. Lead us not into temptation and deliver us from evil. We have to forgive, and we have to forget to be able to be protected from falling into temptation and all evil. And I say it from the bottom of my heart, not to try to gain anything for anything. I just want to see peace, especially when we have 3 Hispanic people in such a position. This is awesome. And people against one another, and not really, because Vicky told me.
Okay, if I could ask you to draw your comments to a close, it's been way over 3 minutes.
Oh, okay. She said, Angela is like a child to me that she turned on us. And and I don't know if I have permission to give Angela this, but I have this in my own bedroom. I have 12 brothers and sisters, and this is my prayer every day. Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace. This is what I want is peace, so we can be a good example for the community, especially the Hispanic community. Like our brother said about, illegal aliens. You know what? If we can be part of something, and then God created this for everyone. God created the heavens and earth for everyone. So I really honestly, just from the bottom of my heart, I ask to have peace, forgiveness, and restoration. And if I can lay this on the table, and this is for you, Angela, if you will accept it, it's from my heart.
You can submit it to our city clerk. Okay. Thank you.
So thank you so much for listening to me tonight, and I just really hope and pray for the best, so we can have the great promise that God has given to us. Okay? Thank you.
All right, that is the end of the public comment. I have no other cards. I'm not going to allow anybody else that's spoken before. Sir, you will be the last one. Please come forward. I need to move this meeting along. And by the way, everyone that is asked to speak beyond the cards I had, if you please submit a card to our city clerk, we need you on the record.
Okay. My name is Chris Bricello. This is my first time coming to the council. I've been here since 1984, so practically my whole life. This is concerning the racquetball courts and the basketball and the gyms and stuff like that. I think that to keep those open is important. I don't know how much you're spending to keep them open. Maybe just the electricity and the 2 people that are in there. But we need them open because there's kids who are in homeschool and they have idle time and they go there during the day and sometimes in the night. And we don't need more teenagers or more young people with idle time on their hands. It's not good for the city. It's not good for their homes. It's not good for anything. So that's what I just want to tell you. Maybe you can keep it open.
Thank you. All right, we will now move into our agenda items. Are there any revisions to the agenda?
The only revisions were the ones presented earlier, Mayor McEachron.
Okay. The Library Board of Trustees, we have the consent calendar.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Cabriella, second by Councilmember Kennedy. Motion carries unanimously.
Under written communications, we have a request to approve the renewal of the automation services agreement between the Victorville City Library and the San Bernardino County Library System.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Cabriella, second by Councilmember Rothschild. Motion carries unanimously.
There are no items under the Southern California Logistics Rail Authority, so we'll move on to the Southern California Logistics Airport Authority. There's someone's phone's going off, or there's some sort of alarm. Get IT to address
Mr. Mayor, I've asked IT. They're not sure what that alarm might be. Mr. Gargan, do you recognize that sound? I can't even tell exactly where it's coming from.
All right, we do have written communication under the Southern California Logistics Airport Authority. This is a PowerPoint presentation regarding properties owned at SCLA.
Mr. Mayor, I was able to locate it down here. Looks like it's a uninterruptible power supply to keep one of the computers running. So, Perel, if I could ask you to come out here and make sure that I've got it off enough that it's not going to sound again. Thanks.
All right, agenda item number 11, Mr. Cox. Mr. Metzler.
Just give me 2 seconds. He's going to queue up the PowerPoint that I have for you. Looks like we've got it off. He'll go back and get the PowerPoint up. Sorry, Keith. Mr. Chairman, if I might, members of the board.
Can you get closer to the mic?
If I might, while the PowerPoint is being put up for discussion. This item really is being brought to your attention as information only, for informational purposes, and maybe to help guide policy going into the budget cycle. But on March 15th, 2011, at the council meeting, Mayor McEachern asked for information regarding properties at SCLA, and I think the general context of that discussion was revolving around looking citywide at all of the resources that we have and trying to determine what can be available either for sale or for lease or for whatever revenue-producing purpose that can help satisfy some of the budgetary constraints that the city is facing in this year. So I had attempted to do that because I took his comments to really speak in generality to the properties at and around SCLA. And I think this information might be helpful in giving a little bit more sense of what really is out there, because as it stands today, there's a lot of property that's owned either in the name of the city or in the name of the rail authority or in the name of the airport authority. And there are things we can do in terms of just immediately disposing of assets, though those things are fairly limited. There are also other things we can do that fall subject to a number of agreements that we've been party to over the years. But maybe starting out in the information that I have before you, the illustration is really an attempt to generalize all of the various forms of ownerships of property at and around SCLA. And today there's really 5 governing documents that we've inherited or that we've participated in over the years dating back to 1996. And really the first governing documents that we've been involved in regarding the former George Air Force Base were documents that we typically call the EDC document, which is an acronym for Economic Development Conveyance. There's also another acronym, PBT, and that's Public Benefit Transfer documents. But those were agreements that were actually put in place back in June of 1996. They were actually documents that we inherited as an assignment and an assumption from the Victor Valley Economic Development Authority. It was determined that the City of Victorville / Southern California Logistics Airport Authority was the most suitable to take over the development and the eventual redevelopment of the George Air Force Base. And the EDC and the PBT documents serve as foundational documents that still have life today. EDC documents typically get coined as properties outside the fence line. Off-airport properties is another way of terming it. PBT properties are traditionally the properties inside the fence line that have probably the greatest restriction with respect to property transfer. In fact, we'll have some slides really focusing on those areas in greater particularity. Subsequently, and it was in 1999 when we had commenced our relationship formally via master agreement with Sterling Airports International. And that agreement originally dealt with bestowing them the responsibility under the agreement to market, manage, and ultimately develop both the on-airport and off-airport properties. Subsequent to that relationship, in July of 2003, we actually evolved in our partnership with Sterling, and through the Southern California Logistics Rail Authority, developed what's called a Master Rail Agreement. And that agreement, very similar in nature to the Master Development Agreement for the EDC properties and the PBT properties, dealt with properties envisioned to become the rail project, which is generally along the eastern edge. To show you the illustration, that would be largely the properties in red on the illustration. October 2006, another document that's foundational today is the Disposition and Development Agreement, and a DDA is the acronym for that document, and that basically is a document that actually conveys real property to the private developer. In that case, it was Sterling, as they're basically effectuating their role under the original 1999 Master Agreement. And then finally, I think germane to the discussion is what we had done this last December. The Master Agreement with Sterling has evolved on a number of fronts, and the most significant involves an amendment, the Fourth Amendment to the Master Agreement. And that's the current governing document for our relationship with Sterling. Very generally, that really restructured some of our relationship with respect to development responsibilities for both the on and off airport properties. Starting with the parcels A and C, or the PBT properties, or what we call inside the fence line. And backing up, I didn't give you a factoid, but altogether the properties that fall subject to those agreements that we talked about generally encompass about 3,200 acres in total. So that's the expansive area that we're really kind of talking about. And then each of these divisions of property or subdivisions of property I've broken down generally what we're talking about. So in the case of the parcels A and C, the PBT properties, that's about 1,400 acres of property. Now this illustrated as parcels A and C, and they have color code that actually have meaning depending upon actual ownership, but the most important thing to focus on this illustration deals more with the actual boundary. Now these are the most restricted of properties you have control over. A and C is what we call on-airport. The PBT document, as the underlying document, basically prohibits any transfer in fee of properties that fall within this boundary. So effectively, you cannot sell these properties as they're required to remain for public benefit as an airport in perpetuity. Taking that one step further, there's additional covenants and restrictions recorded against the property as it evolved into our relationship with the FAA. And in fact, as a FAA-controlled airport, even FAA has jurisdiction with respect to the ability to transfer properties. One of the items identified here speaks to a FOSSAT. Now, a lot of this property has actually been transferred to the airport authority. There is some property, largely the properties in green, that are going through a transfer process. A lot of these properties are contaminated properties. They go through a cleanup process that are going to last a very long time. but there's some environmental assurance that we're trying to get worked out with the Air Force in the cases of what's in green before we actually accept physical transfer from the Air Force to the SCLAA. Parcels being...
If I may have missed, what is the FAWCET acronym?
FAWCET is it's an acronym for Finding of Suitability for Early Transfer. And it's a wild acronym, but effectively it's a form of transfer that allows the transfer to be conducted before full cleanup has occurred on the property. And I know Andre is much more acutely aware as to the details that go into it. But
follow-up, it allows you to take down property from the federal government that is still contaminated with an agreement from the federal government that they will continue the cleanup, that allows you then to have access and use of that property. Not necessarily a great idea because the federal cleanup funds are an annual appropriation, so we've been hesitant to take down property until we're sure it's clean.
Moving on to the developable properties or the EDC properties. Now these are properties that get transferred to the airport authority that don't have the same restrictions as the on-airport parcels. These are the parcels that are intended for actual redevelopment and can be transferred for private purpose. These parcels are what's largely covered now in the master agreement. In fact, the master agreement we have with Sterling gives them the first right of refusal with respect to these properties. And moving on to some of the greater detail of that, the acreage, I thought I had on here. There it is. It's about a little over 1,000 acres of property. Today, 360 acres of that's actually been transferred to Sterling. Upon that 360 acres, you can see physical development that's occurred, and it's this property that has actually enabled development such as Newell Rubbermaid, Dr. Pepper Snapple. There's other tenants out there such as Sparklets, and a few others. But effectively, all of the B&D properties are under first right of refusal to Sterling. They have the responsibility to market, manage, and develop those parcels. There's always conditions to transfer, and even though that they have the first right of refusal before we can physically transfer property to them, we require an actual development project to accompany that. So it starts with a proposal, starts with a financial analysis, and then from there we can actually entertain the transfer through a DDA. But basically, they have the first right to acquire the property for what we paid the Air Force for, and that was a little over 2 cents per square foot. And then basically the land transfer side of the document, this works based on a profit sharing arrangement. So for each dollar of per square footage price that's actually paid for the transfer of property, we actually share, and that's identified a little bit more particularly on item number 4. A piece of property that's actually carved out and has opportunity to be sold off is Parcel J. Parcel J is property located along the eastern edge of SCLA. Parcel J is effectively what is the West Winds Golf Course and some additional area around West Winds Golf Course. And the two illustrations show what Parcel J was to us in terms of meaning between our relationship with the Air Force, and then, of course, what it means in terms of our relationship with Sterling. One element that was actually carved out in our master agreement and isn't really protected, in our opinion, as to the development rights Sterling has over Parcel J is with respect to that illustration you see on the right. And basically the area that encompasses today the West Winds Golf Course isn't governed by the master agreement, and to the extent it was identified as property intended for sale, it certainly could be. That's a policy that the council has to make. One thing that we probably have little knowledge about is what the most ideal form of the development and what the development could look like on that property. It's the topography is fairly challenged, the infrastructure is fairly challenged, and a lot of the planning work that we've done around the infrastructure at STLA really hasn't factored in development of the West Winds Golf Course. But that is property that we were able to at least identify as not having restrictions of the master agreement with Sterling. Basically, what that's to mean is there's about 170 acres, and we actually quantified that if potential sale of that were to occur, that's generally what we're looking at is possibly being available. Rail properties. We have undertaken the acquisition pursuant to our master rail agreement to acquire a number of properties. And for the rail purpose, that's about 456 properties, and that's to do everything from accommodate the eventual installation of a rail spur tying into the main line to some properties under the footprint of what would eventually become the domestic intermodal facility that was at one time planned by BNSF. Now, the plans for rail have not gone away. A lot of the plans for rail have been basically delayed due to global trade in the marketplace and just the global demand having gone down. I know as much that through BNSF and in our dealings and discussions with them, fundamentally they still see futuristically a demand for a new domestic intermodal facility, but because capacity has been freed up in their network, it's further delaying their actual need for that domestic intermodal facility today. Notwithstanding that, we still have some very valuable asset in the real estate and the actual work that's been done to date, the undercrossing, the design work, the actual grading of the rail bed. There's another project that we're actually conducting a lot of due diligence on, and that's a project that would actually get rail built on the area that's actually been constructed upon the rail bed. There's some residual parcels that we do believe can accommodate a transload type rail operation that we believe is actually greatly needed for not only the industrial users that are operating in this valley, but there's seemingly a great interest in companies that don't operate here needing some type of additional transload service so that they can access Southern California. These properties, I identified them specifically because they are subject to a master rail agreement very similar to the master development agreement for the EDC properties. It has a very similar effect in that we have first right of refusal relationship with Sterling. So before a decision were to be made to sell the property, we certainly have to exhaust the effort of working with Sterling and giving them the opportunity to take those properties down. The eventual sale of those properties also have very similar provisions to the master agreement, where in this case they buy the properties first for what we've paid or put into the properties, and that amount can't be less than fair market. So to the extent fair market is greater than what we actually acquired the property for, then that gets subject to the same profit sharing relationship that we have in the master agreement. BV2 properties, and I'm not the best one to speak to the actual status of the properties, but it is identified as approximately 500 acres. We've identified it because it's the large area of property that's under city ownership. It was acquired and falls generally within the footprint of the rail project. In fact, some of that black line that you see kind of meandering in and out, that's actually part of the footprint for the rail project. And the properties were acquired outside the original scope or intent of the master rail agreement. We believe that if the city chose to sell these properties as power plant related site properties, that it's likely to do so and not have these properties being subjected to the provisions of the master rail agreement. Not so sure it's that easy. And in fact, Andre and I debated a little bit before this meeting. We do believe that, or at least I do, that there's a likelihood of the master rail agreement being applied to these properties if you decided to change the ultimate use for the property. So, for example, if the council's desire was to identify these properties as sale, and naturally when you want to sell property, you want to sell it with the highest and best use, it could be determined that highest and best use is not as a power plant and maybe more so as an industrial park, warehouse, rail, manufacturing related. To the extent you were to pursue that, I do believe that then you probably have to exercise the provisions of the Master Rail Agreement and then pursue some type of opportunity with Sterling first before making it available on the public market. Those are steps that we can all pursue. Those are steps we haven't pursued to date, but certainly can with your direction. And that's really it in a nutshell. It was more intended to give you at least a sense of what's out there. The biggest concern is that the decision to sell property to help plug budget holes, if that's the desire of the council, certainly not as easy in most of the cases as it relates to all the properties out of FCLA. There's one particular case that we think it could be easy to do, but for the rest of it, there's probably a lot of effort that's got to go into making that happen, including bringing on your private partner as it relates to the master development of the entire rail and airport facility. So with that, I'll remain available for any questions or comments.
Questions or comments from the council?
Keith, the rail properties, what have we done so far? They're permitting. We've done a road bed.
Correct.
Railroad bed.
Yeah, you're correct. Your biggest projects to date has been a substantial amount of design work. There's been a significant amount of earthwork building up the rail bed that's actually existing right now, and it's probably 1.5 to 2 miles worth of stretch to the main line. There was a major expense that actually went into an undercrossing. The rail bed actually traverses under National Trails Highway. Those are probably your biggest expenses today. There's been a lot of land acquisition along the way. There's even been a lot of environmental and mitigation-related expenses as well.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll move on to the redevelopment agency. Agenda item number 12. This is a request to, 1, affirm the authorization to execute the grant deed for the disposition of NSP real property, and 2, authorize the Director of Economic Development as the authorized signer of all resale-related transaction documents to include the grant deeds.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Cabriola, second by Councilmember Kennedy. Motion carries with Councilmember Valles voting no.
Agenda item number 13 is request to, 1, approve the estimated rehabilitation cost plus 10% contingency for NSP homes purchased, and 2, approve the operations cost of maintaining the properties for approximately 6 months, and 3, designate the Director of Economic Development as the authorized signer of all related transaction documents.
Again, I feel this program keeps our property values down.
Motion by Councilmember Kennedy, second by Councilmember Rothschild. Motion carries with Councilmember Valles voting no.
Joint Powers Financing Authority, there's no items on that agenda. Moving on to the Victorville Water District, we do have the consent calendar.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Cabriola, second by Councilmember Rothschild. Councilmember Valles, may I get a vote from you? Thank you. Motion carries with Councilmember Kennedy absent.
Right, under written communications, agenda item number 15, and this is a companion item to City Council item number 26. Request to approve a change order to VCI Telecom contract for the Eastside Electrical Backbone project to increase the contract by a not to exceed amount of $205,000.
Motion by Councilmember Rothschild, second by Mayor Pro Tem Cabriolas. Motion carries with Councilmember Kennedy absent and Councilmember Valles voting no.
Agenda item number 16 is a companion item to City Council item number 28. This is a request to approve utility agreement number 21915 by and between the City of Victorville and the Victorville Water District regarding the relocation of water facilities to accommodate the construction of the La Mesa Nisqually interchange and authorize the district president to execute the agreement on behalf of the city in the amount of $1,378,000.
Motion by Councilmember Rothschild, second by Mayor Pro Tem Cabrialis. Motion carries with Councilmember Kennedy absent and Councilmember Valles voting no.
All right, agenda item number 17 is one that both Councilmember Kennedy and I believe, have recused ourselves on previously, so we would need to do so on this item as well. Is that correct? So I will hand over the meeting to Mayor Pro Tem Cabrialis.
Item 17 is a continued public hearing, a call to receive citizen and agency comments regarding the draft fiscal year 2011-2012 annual action plan. To adopt the HCD grants review committee recommendations, approve and adopt the plan as presented for submittal to Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, and 4, to authorize city manager to execute all necessary documents for submittal to HUD. At this time, I will continue the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against item number 17, will you please come to the podium. Anyone wishing to speak for or against item 17, will you please come to the podium. Hearing none, I will close the public hearing, and I will ask for a motion.
Motion by Councilmember Rothschild, second by Mayor Pro Tem Cabrialis. Motion carries with Mayor McEachron and Councilmember Kennedy absent.
Item 18 is a request to approve the consent calendar.
Motion by Councilmember Rothschild, second by Mayor Pro Tem Cabrialis.
I'd like to point out that we paid the city attorney $174,000.
Motion carries with Mayor McEachron absent and Councilmember Valles voting no.
All right, we're moving on to agenda item number 19, request to ratify the memorandum of understanding between the City of Victorville and the Victor Elementary School District and the Victor Valley Union High School District for the period of July 1st, 2011 through June 30, 2012, and authorize city manager or his designee to process all documents required for the agreements, providing joint funding for deputies assigned as school resource officers.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Cabrialis, second by Councilmember Kennedy. Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item number 20 is a request to ratify items purchased and approve an additional appropriation for redundant equipment at FCLA in the amount of $114,350.88.
I think we need to wait until we are in better financial shape before buying duplicate equipment.
Motion by Councilmember Kennedy, second by Councilmember Rothschild. Motion carries with Councilmember Vyas voting no.
Agenda item number 21 is request to approve a service provider agreement with Albert Grover and Associates for traffic engineering services in the amount of $57,670.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Cabriolas, second by Councilmember Rothschild. Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item number 22 is a request to adopt resolution number 11-019, titled A Resolution of the City Council of the City of Victorville Adopting a Solar Rebate Program Pursuant to the Requirements of Senate Bill 1.
Motion by Councilmember Rothschild, second by Councilmember Kennedy. Motion carries unanimously.
And McEachern, on the next item, I believe items 23, 24, and actually 27, if it's okay with you to handle those together. I believe Councilmember Vyas may have a possible perception of a conflict, so I'd recommend she recuse herself. And hopefully you can handle those three items together, or one after the other.
Okay, we'll go ahead and handle agenda item number 23, 24, and 27?
Correct.
Okay. 23 is a request to adopt resolution 11-020, entitled Resolution of the City Council of the City of Victorville rejecting the quote for the furnish, deliver, and install sewer manhole monitoring equipment project and authorizing city staff to proceed with the project for reasons of economy by means of a negotiated contract pursuant to Victorville Municipal Code section 2.28.220, subsection A2, and agenda item number 24 is a request to award a purchase order to Ponton Industries in the amount of $26,034.32 for the purchase of sewer manhole monitoring equipment to monitor effluent flows from Dr. Pepper Sample Group. And let's just take those two first because those are related.
Motion by Councilmember Kennedy, second by Councilmember Rothschild. Motion carries with Councilmember Vyas absent.
Agenda item number 27 is a request to approve utility agreement number 21914 regarding the relocation of sewer facilities to accommodate the construction of the La Mesa Nisqually interchange and authorize the mayor to execute the agreement on behalf of the city in the following two capacities: as project proponent for the project, and two, as the successor agency to the Victorville Sanitary District in the amount of $1,509,000.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Cabriolas, second by Councilmember Kennedy. Motion carries with Councilmember Vyas absent.
Okay, we'll now move back to agenda item number 25. This is a request to approve additional appropriations in the amount of $43,200 to Stoffers Landscape Incorporated for a total amount of $168,200 for project BM11-028 Landscape Maintenance Services.
Motion by Councilmember Kennedy, second by Mayor Pro Tem Cabriolas. Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item number 29 is a request to approve an additional appropriation to use funds from the Public Works Week donation account for the upcoming Public Works Day 2011 event to be held Thursday, June 2nd, 2011 in the amount of $900.
Mayor McEachern, excuse me, I believe we need to act on item 26.
Oh, I thought we approved these as companion items.
Excuse me, sorry.
Okay, so agenda item number 29 is before the council.
Motion by Councilmember Kennedy, second by Mayor Pro Tem Cabrialis. Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item number 30 is request to approve the rejection of the two submittals for Southern California Logistics Airport Authority Building 732 HVAC improvements.
I'd just like to say, I think that it should be always the first option to consider doing the work in-house before we even go out to bid.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Cabrialis, second by Councilmember Rothschild. Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item number 31, discussion and possible action as to the sandbag contract number C11200 regarding La Mesa Nisqually Interchange project. And I'd like to have a presentation from staff, starting with our City Manager, Jim Cox.
Mr. Mayor and Council, this has been on the last two council agendas in some sort of fashion discussing this matter. Doug Robertson has been given the task of negotiating an agreement with Sandbag and putting together an agreement in regard to the requirements that Sandbag staff have recommended. This involves an analysis on the part of the City of Victorville regarding the DIF money, the amount available, the requirement for a $10 million deposit, and the effect that it will have upon the future funding. And Mr. Robinson has submitted quite a lengthy memorandum on this matter, and I'd ask that he make a verbal presentation to the City Council regarding this item.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. There may have been some misunderstanding based on my agenda item that I was somehow opposed to the project. I had that voiced to me by a couple of folks. And I just want to be on the record that I'm not against the project. My goal with the agenda item was to inform the council, not to advocate one way or the other. But I do feel a need to inform the council with as much factual information as I can get my hands on at the time. The reality is that the project as proposed with the agreement with Sandbag is not without risk. Past city councils have been, or the city in the past has been accused of not weighing all of the risks for costly projects. And it's, I guess, up for debate if that is the fault of staff for not presenting the risks or the fault of council for not considering the risks. I don't want to get into that, but I didn't want the city staff at this point to be accused of something similar with this project. It is a risky endeavor to use approximately 20% of your cash on hand, or $10 million, to assist in funding this project at this time. Much of the work that went into determining the figures for this project and whether or not it would work from a cash flow standpoint are based on economic factors. Measure I is based on sales tax. Development impact fees are based on development. And so, it's a bit of a crystal ball exercise to determine how real the numbers are. But in no way do I want to express to the council that I'm against the project. I received yesterday new information from Sandbag staff regarding the cash flows that I had requested previously. And looking at those cash flows, it appears, based on Sandbag's estimations for Measure I, that we would have approximately let me back up for just a moment to make sure that I get it correct. It appears that based on the Measure I stats that I've got from Sandbag, and also based on their construction schedule that they are proposing, it appears that for this project, year one of the project, they would not spend down enough of the $10 million that we would deposit in order to trigger their need to withhold the city's local Measure I dollars. Assuming that those figures come in similar to this year, that would be approximately $3 million. In years 2 through 6, it appears that they would, in fact, withhold those Measure I dollars. And, in fact, beginning in year 7, At that point, again, with those caveats that I said, it appears that we would begin receiving our Measure I dollars again because the debt will have been satisfied and no longer have a need for that escrow account. Putting those two numbers together along with some of the other figures in the staff report, it stands to reason that if all the estimates are correct, and I believe that they are, that we would in fact survive that 6-year period and effectively break even over those 6 years from a dollars and cents standpoint. And based on our current budget and based on what is in the draft budget for next year, it would not have a material effect on our ability to maintain the streets, the signals, and signs and striping that was of concern. However, as I said, that's 5 years, 6 years of basing stats on what could or could not, may not happen in the economy. Certainly it appears that Victorville's economy is attempting to come back, but it could end up being a bumpy road, and I don't want this council to take an action that would effectively cause $10 million to go out of Victorville's bank account and regret it 2 or 3 years later, not having those facts. Also looking at the cash flow analysis that I was provided by Sandbag staff, a couple of things that I should point out that I did not have the information when putting together the agenda item, is that we don't have an MOU in place at this time with Apple Valley and the county. Previously, that was something that has been negotiated for, I think, a couple of years now, at least a year. Putting together an understanding of who's going to pay for what exactly and when. The current agreement, as written, would have Victorville paying for 100% of the La Mesa Nisqually interchange. There is an assumption that ultimately we will sign that MOU with Apple Valley and the county, and that the dollars that are required to be paid by the county and by Apple Valley towards the La Mesa Nisqually interchange would instead be paid towards other pieces of that corridor project, namely the piece in between the Yucca Loma Bridge and the La Mesa Nisqually interchange, Green Tree Extension, if you want to call it that, also including the bridge over the railroad. That is an assumption at this point. It's a promise at this point, but it's not in writing at this point. Another issue that came up just recently and was approved at the Sandbag meeting was taking some state dollars from the La Mesa Nisqually interchange project and putting it towards that corridor project, or excuse me, towards the Yucca Loma Bridge. Again, at the Sandbag meeting, Mayor McEachern got it on record that in fact those dollars would be made up by Apple Valley's share of the major local highways. But again, until it's in writing with signatures, there's still some work to be done on it. Just need the council to be fully aware of where we are with those projects. An interesting point that I haven't been able to verify with Sandbag, but I believe to be the case based on the cash flows that they sent me, is that if in fact there was no MOU with Apple Valley and Apple Valley was required to come up with their $6 to $6.5 million of developer share, we in fact wouldn't have the cash flow problem, and theoretically, if Sandbag so chose, they could return that $1.3 million that we requested on an annual basis without running into the cash flow problem that was discussed at their last meeting. The last piece of information that I've gleaned from this cash flow analysis is that the missing piece of the Yucca Loma corridor between the Yucca Loma Bridge that is already well into design and wants to be under construction now, I understand, and the La Mesa Nisqually interchange is simply referred to as the Yucca Loma corridor. That's the Green Tree Extension, the railroad bridge. That is currently planned, based on this cash flow, for 2016-17. If in fact that were to occur later, again, we would not have that cash flow issue. So, in my opinion, based on the best knowledge that we have, based on the best estimates that we have, we will be able to get through the project without dipping too deep into our street maintenance funds to cause a problem for the city. My intent when I discussed the potential for layoffs is that the council has mentioned in public meetings that layoffs were to be a last resort. One option available to the council, again, not recommending it, but one option that is available, is to, instead of spending that $10 million on the interchange to spend it on other local streets, which would be perfectly legal to do, which would then employ city staff to run those projects. So I hope that clears up any confusion that there may have been about my intentions with the staff report, and I'm available to answer any questions, as is Mr. McGlade, who's handled the project for the city.
Okay. We'll open up to questions and discussion among council members. Mr. Rothschild?
I'll go ahead and take the lead. I sent out a memo to the council before this meeting that and by the way, let me preface that by telling you there's nobody on this council that's been waiting longer than me for Nisqually. I wish it was up and running today. And the moment we can get our tractors going, the happier I am, as well as all five of us and any of the past council members and everybody in this community. That isn't even a question on the agenda tonight. But there isn't a question on the agenda tonight, and that is the appropriateness of putting a shovel in the ground today versus 6 months from now or a year from now. That difference is very dramatic with respect to the risks imposed by the city of Victorville. Let me back off from that for just a minute. Just to give you a slight historical note on Measure I. There are two Measure I's. Yes, the county passed the Measure I countywide, but there is, at the Cajon Pass down the hill, everybody puts all their money into one pot. And the Sandbag Board votes down there on projects, and then they spend the money on that. Up here, there's a different formula totally. Up here, and we designed it this way. Unfortunately, it's being undermined by Sandbag, and I can point to a couple of instances when that happened. But up here, we break ourselves into regions. Victor Valley is a region and everything else. Our Measure I is broken up into pods, and within those pods, we have subcommittees within our Sandbag organization up here that first look at the projects, design how we're going to spend them, and then we go to this little high desert regional board, and they get a consensus, and then 8 of us out of 24 votes down below, 8 of us march down the hill and say, here's what we want to do with our Measure I. There isn't a whit of influence on anything that we do with our money to their money down there. There's nothing whatsoever. They shouldn't even have a say in what we're doing up here. Unfortunately, the language in the law says that they do. And on a number of occasions, we've walked down there and said, okay, this is the way we want our money spent. And the board down there, through the influence of Deborah Barmack and the Sandbag staff, has overruled the High Desert region. One of them, when I was on the Sandbag board, was the funding in Nisqually the first time, a couple of years ago, when we had $15 million in STIPs dedicated to Nisqually. And Sandbag staff said, no, everybody down there pays more for the bridges, so we want Victorville to pay 75% of the bridge. $60 million bridge, they wanted us to pay $45 million, and they'd give us the $15 million. We said, as a council, we said, no, we're not going to do that. Up here, our rule is 50-50. You come up with 50%, we come up with 50%. They took the $15 million away. And that was dedicated to the board voted down there to dedicate that $15 million to the 10 freeway corridor. So it didn't happen. A year later, we get $15 million again, supposedly to replace the $15 million on Nisqually. And guess what? Supervisor Metzenfeld, in his infinite wisdom, decides to give $7.5 million to Nisqually, $7.5 million to Yucca-Loma project. And remember, he's the one that teed up this Yucca-Loma corridor. Nobody had anything, master plans on that. We talked about connecting Apple Valley to Victorville for many, many years, but that corridor was set up, and guess what? It's not the Yucca-Loma Nisqually corridor. It's the Yucca-Loma Green Tree Boulevard corridor. That's what it is. As we're sitting here right now, that project is designed to come off of Ridgecrest, hit the headwaters of Green Tree. At maximum use, about 20,000 cars a day are going to hit Green Tree Boulevard right there at Hesperia Road, and we're going to magically disperse them throughout our city to the benefit of Apple Valley and the county. Yucca-Loma corridor is no benefit to the city of Victorville. None. It is a great benefit to the county. It's a great benefit to the Apple Valley. We are accommodating it, and I am sitting here right here and tell you, I want Yucca-Loma corridor to work, but it has to be on Nisqually, not down Green Tree Boulevard. It can't be. And one of the documents missing in tonight's discussion is the MOU, the agreements between the county, Apple Valley, and the city of Victorville on what we ought to do. You have a bridge over the railroad tracks. I'll just give some estimate numbers so you don't quibble up, but about $10 million for a bridge over the railroad tracks. There's other improvements from the railroad tracks off of there to Hesperia, and then there's 2 more lanes from Hesperia Road to Nisqually. All that just to accommodate the traffic. Not the least of which is there is actually no guarantee that when the traffic hits Green Tree, I don't care what engineering designs you put in place, you're not going to negatively impact the city of Victorville greatly, especially when folks are coming out of there and going to SCLA to work and they happen to come over there. And then I have a problem with the traffic study. That traffic study is a joke. It's saying that all the development that's going into the mountains over there overlooking the Kemper Campbell Ranch is going to go shop in Victorville, Old Town. No, they're going to go over the bridge into Apple Valley. There's probably, in my estimation, about $1 million a year in sales tax revenue in perpetuity going to Apple Valley to the benefit of them. Yet we're building the bridge to their accommodate them. No benefit of ours. We've got some great important discussions that have to be done before we complete this corridor project. So what does that mean? What does that have to do with Sandbag building Nisqually? They've got conditions built into this right now that injure this city. One, not the least of which is if they take that 10 million down to 3 million or less, and they say, well, we don't think we're going to take it down. I believe them that they probably won't take it down the first year. But who says the economy is going to hold up enough for us to get through a couple of years without that coming back and taking local Measure I? Remember I said Measure I is broken into pots? Well, 75% of Measure I belongs to the city of Victorville in our little city, and each city has their 75%, and 25% has what we call a regional pot for that the 5 of us sit together as a Victor Valley and decide on that. That's where that money ought to come from. It's not. This language here says it comes from our local Measure I, our streets and our street repairs. So the second year into this project, guess what? We're going to be hurting if we don't have the money sitting there to take care of those streets. This agreement has a lot of flaws in it, and it needs to be done. It can be corrected, but it's not corrected tonight. Tonight there's a lot of serious damage and threat to the city of Victorville. I want the project no less than anybody else on this council or any past people or anybody in this citizen in this town. I want those tractors moving tomorrow. But we've got to do it right. We're in a very tight budget constraint right now. 6 months or a year, the fiscal picture may change. And we may be able to accommodate that. There is a threat. The Assistant City Manager just indicated that you can't see beyond next year. So what about the revenue flows for those Measures I? 7 years down the road we'll have it. Maybe next year we'll be hurting, and the year after for potholes and everything else. No, we don't need it. We can wait 6 months. We've waited 20 years. We can wait 6 months or a year, especially in these unfortunate times. So I can't agree with this agreement with Sandbag. They have their own set of rules and their own agenda. They stabbed us in the back. They took the $15 million and caused that financial crisis. That shouldn't have been there. That $15 million should be sitting on our side of the equation right now, and we'll take care of Yuckaloma after we get Nisqually done. They've teed them both up simultaneously to put a lot of pressure on Victorville to cover that expense of the connection between the Yuckaloma corridor and the Victorville. No, nothing in here says how we're going to do with those things. I think there's at least $15 to $20 million in connection costs, all being dumped on the city residents of Victorville, and yet the corridor isn't a major benefit to us at all. We're doing it for the benefit of Apple Valley and the county. I'm sorry, but the city of Victorville right now under this agreement is being screwed, and they shouldn't sign the agreement. I am totally against this agreement at this time with Sandbag. And I'm not against Sandbag building the bridge. I don't care if they build it or not. They do a good job building bridges. But this agreement is vindictive. They're angry because Victorville stood up to them when they did their 75-25 formula. Supervisor Metzenfeld was the leader of that. Just like he's right now. He's teed up the corridor and he's saying, Victorville, go ahead and push it forward or we'll just kind of hurt you some more. And that's basically what they've done right now. And so the project is good. The traffic has to get to Nisqually. There's no way that sitting here today that anybody in this council can guarantee me that traffic will get there properly. 20,000 cars a day hitting the city of Victorville to the benefit of Apple Valley and the county, and no benefit of ours. And sales tax going the other way. I think we ought to sit down and discuss this. 6 months delay wouldn't have hurt at all, and it certainly doesn't queer the deal in terms of getting the project teed up to go. It's just that even though the real estate's ready, the finances aren't, and those finances are very important at this moment in time. So my vote is no. Thank you.
Councilmember Kennedy?
In my mind, this project makes no sense if we don't do the Oklahoma Bridge, if we don't actually create a corridor to get a third route across the valley. I have to say, I think anything we do to relieve congestion on Highway 18 and Bear Valley Road with another corridor is clearly a benefit to the citizens of Victorville. People trying to get from the west side of the freeway to the east, people getting from wherever they live to the freeway. A third corridor, in my mind, makes a lot of sense. So but my question is there any possibility that they will build this thing and not take traffic to Nisqually? I can't imagine if I were driving from Apple Valley on that corridor that I would want Greentree, because the intersections of Greentree are just awful. I mean, I'd choose an on-ramp at Nisqually. I drive that Greentree intersection all the time. What about that, Doug? Can you comment on that?
I can comment based on hearing this discussion many times, and I'm going to use Mr. McGlade's analogy that the traffic flows like water. If Nisqually becomes at all impacted, they will go wherever they will go to get to the freeway if they think it's quicker. There are engineering plans in place to try to affect that decision-making process by each driver that will make them want to go down Nisqually. Make them want to go down Hesperia Road to Nisqually, but there's no way to control exactly where they go.
Can't imagine they're going to drive down Greentree just to make Mike mad. I don't think that's going to happen. They're going to choose the route that makes the most sense, and I don't think Greentree is going to make a lot of sense.
SCLA to work.
Well, yeah, I don't know what the population traffic flow to SCLA from Apple Valley really is. It strikes me as being fairly minor compared to the rest. What I believe, I don't know what a 6-month delay buys us except the engineering problems going from metrics to the English system or vice versa. I guess that is a factor at this moment. Seems to me there could be no possible better time to undertake this construction project than now, with the cost of construction where it is. I think it would be a mistake to see this project as a trade-off against police and fire or parks and rec or other general fund issues. The general fund deficit has got to be addressed. We've got to deal with the general fund deficit, and it has nothing to do with that interchange, unless we want to hang on to that $10 million so we can borrow it up to support an ongoing, continuing general fund deficit. There's no sense to that. We've got to deal with the general fund deficit. This $50 million cost on this project, correct me, Doug, this is my understanding of big, simple numbers. $50 million, half of it's going to get paid with DIP funds, those that we have now, those that we will get in the future, about $25 million. The other $25 million is going to be Measure I money.
That's correct. Your figures are just a tad low. Right now, the estimate I think is $58 million for the actual interchange itself. The measure requires that 50% come from quote developer share. So ultimately, even though over this 6-year period we would borrow Measure I, ultimately all of those dollars must be repaid by development impact fees. So ultimately, yes, 50% comes from development impact fees. The other 50% is the public share. It could come from Measure I. It could come from state funds. It could come from federal funds. It just has to be paid by the public.
Okay. So none of that is general fund money. So I don't think we want to get those two issues mixed together. This seems to me to be the right time to do this.
I thank you. Size?
It seems to me that Victorville is repeating history. Starting this project, having the funding in place before is exactly what the city doesn't do. With the VB2 project, with the sewer plant, the result of that is a massive cash flow drain on the management. It has attempted to cover through borrowings of other funds, including restricted funds, and by laying off staff. The city does not have the money in the DIF funds. It is not expected to get the money in the next 2 years, which leaves the general fund holding the proverbial bag. This in turn will force the city to make even more layoffs, and I cannot imagine that we can cut staff to save $15 million over the next 2 years. If we do that, we might as well close up City Hall. The alternative is the Measure I funding will be totally cut off, and we will not have any money to maintain our existing roads and streets. As much as I would like to have the interchange built, I cannot and will not support undertaking a project that relies on the general fund for money because it has none, or for a project that will stop basic road maintenance, or for a project that will be paid for by layoffs. It would have been proper for this council to have been told the facts about the lack of funding 2 years ago, 1 year ago, or even maybe 6 months ago. By not being told this, the council has approved the spending of perhaps millions of dollars on this project that we cannot now know cannot be undertaken. My vote is to suspend the project until which time as management can present a funding plan that is assured, fixed, and in place, and does not rely on the general fund, and does not rely on interfund borrowings, and does not rely on layoffs to pay the costs. As my final comment, it is obvious to me that the project will cause irreparable financial damage to the city, and yet staff takes no real position in this matter. I would have thought that staff, and especially the city manager, would have taken a position and told council that in their professional opinion, the project cannot be started, instead of leaving it up to the council to debate the item in a political arena.
Well, first of all, Councilman Kennedy made a point that the DIP fees and the Measure I funds are restricted funds, have nothing to do with the general fund, and I agree with that. And Mike made some good points, and I was concerned when the agreement came back modified, not having the 1.3 million cap on it that we needed for our street maintenance. But based on the information that we have, the new projections, and you know, we had a crystal ball, we could say, yeah, they're going to be correct. We don't. So we have to make a decision based on what information that we have and those projections. We have waited, like Mike indicated, maybe over 20 years for this project. We expended a lot of funds purchasing the property and so on for it, the engineering and all that work that has gone into it. I don't believe that if we wait 6 months, we're going to be able to do it. I don't believe if we wait a year, we're going to be able to do it. And I don't believe we wait another 5 years, we're going to be able to do it. So the best option right now is for Sandbag, with an agreement with the city of Victorville to construct that overpass. It's needed. It will tie in the corridor, but very importantly, I think the people will come to Victorville to shop, and you know, whether we want them to go up to Green Tree or Nisqually, the people will find their own way. They'll find the shortcuts. They'll find whatever way it is that they need to get to what they're going the quickest way. My vote will be to vote for it. However, we mentioned the MOUs that are necessary. So if the vote goes through, I would say that it needs to be tied into those MOUs.
Well, thank you, and I'd just like to reiterate what our city clerk already advised us of. We do have an email as well as a letter from our supervisor, Brad Mitzelfeld, encouraging this council to approve us moving forward on the project with Sandbag, as well as from the town of Apple Valley. I'll concur. I've been working diligently for the last 2.5 years on the Sandbag board, at the direction of this council to move this project forward, and have been able to to get that board of directors to move with us, and that's not an easy task. I know Councilmember Rothschild knows that. Especially with when you talk about the Valley votes, they don't tend to be with the Mountain Desert community, but we've had some success in that realm just recently in being able to secure an additional $5 million for the Mountain Desert community, as well as unanimous on this particular project. But I think what's more important, and one of the things that I want to address here tonight, is that moving this forward is to the benefit of the entire Victor Valley, not just Victorville. And I know that some might say that's not for this council to decide, but the reality is that traffic congestion on Bear Valley Road is traffic congestion on Bear Valley Road, and the majority of it exists on Victorville's side. And Victorville has an obligation to address traffic congestion. This council has an obligation to address traffic congestion. And the sooner we move on that, the sooner we address traffic congestion. It will not go away. It will only get worse as growth continues. While we are busy trying to create jobs up here and bring additional people into the high desert region, as they move here, buy homes here, buy cars here, drive on our roads here, this council will continue to receive continual complaints about traffic congestion. It will not go away unless we build this project. It will not go away unless we build the Yucca-Loma, Yates Road, Green Tree Boulevard project. It will not go away unless we build the Ranchero project in Hesperia. So there are several projects that are on the drawing board that could fall apart tomorrow if we don't approve this project. And how sad would that be if this Victorville City Council were to vote down this today? We lose all of our funding through Sandbag because they're going to shift those funds, to other projects and probably to Valley cities that desperately need those funds as well. I mean, they've bonded for the funds to basically build our interchange. They are ready to go. And we will basically just be giving those funds back to down below, as we all know it. And meanwhile, while traffic congestion is relieved down the hill, it'll continue to increase up here. So I understand some of the points that have been made. I think that, the funding plan, this agreement addresses that. I believe that staff can appropriately budget for those Measure I dollars to make sure that we have the funds in place over the next several fiscal years to address these street maintenance and safety issues so that we don't have that problem. And that's just, out there as far as it might occur that Sandbag would draw down on our Measure I. It's not a for sure. That's just to assume that Victorville can't deposit additional monies. This economy is starting to turn back around. We're starting to see positive signs. And it's the appropriate time to move this project forward. The project estimates are $57, $58 million. But at Sandbag, and I know our city engineer can back this up, project bids are coming in 30 to 40% less than engineers' estimates. I mean, if there's ever a time to move this project forward, it's now, because what's been estimated is not what we're going to pay. So with that, obviously, you all know I've always been in support of this project, and I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we approve this agreement with Sandbag.
And McEachron, does your motion include, I think, Councilmember Cabriales had a couple of contingencies. I don't know.
And to that point, included in the motion, I will continue to work with the town of Apple Valley and the county of San Bernardino on the MOU or whatever, the cooperative agreement, as you might call it. I believe, and there has been stated on public record, I know we have town engineer Brad Miller here that can back that up. They are committed to funding their fair share. As to whether or not it goes to this project or the Yucca-Loma, Yates Road, Green Tree Boulevard project, that still needs to work itself out. But they're committed. It's a part of the Nexus study. They have no choice. Sandbag acknowledged that at the board meeting, that the way the the agreement's written, that they have those obligations, both the town of Apple Valley and the county of San Bernardino. They have never denied that, and so that will continue to work in that fashion. So I would include that as part of the motion. I will continue to work on that with those member jurisdictions.
Motion made by Mayor McEachron, second by Mayor Pro Tem Cabrialis. Motion carries with Councilmember Rothschild and Councilmember Valles voting no.
All right, we'll now move on to council reports, discussion and possible action regarding items for the upcoming city council agendas. Ms. Valles?
I'd like to request that the council put out an RFP for a full-service law firm. Okay. I would like to agendize discussion of whether or not we should hire someone to give us an opinion on whether or not we should file for bankruptcy.
I would like to request that staff look into the request from the couple that were here earlier under public comment in regards to the noise or the music, the loud parties, and the police having to respond. I think we need to look at that, and I would, if it looks feasible, to bring it back under an agenda item.
I would agree with that.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay. Mike?
Yes, I'd request that the council make an effort of attending the workshop that the Planning Commission has first meeting next month. Bill, what's the date on that? First Wednesday of the month?
Second.
Oh, second Wednesday of the month. Kind of an important workshop, and I was wondering if the council and the Planning Commission could get together at that time and go through that agenda with them.
Can we, based upon your request, if the council's okay with it, would it be appropriate to have a joint meeting with the Planning Commission?
Well, Bill's on his way. Second Wednesday in June is the 8th.
Thank you. Yes, real briefly, the workshop that we were presenting was just an informative workshop with information on current development trends right now in residential and commercial development throughout the city of Victorville, where we stand, also state requirements on affordable housing, issues that the council's been concerned about, as well as the commission. And then some alternatives as to direction on ways that the city can move forward. The commission was hoping to just discuss those and then present their options to you. If you would like to join as in part of the audience, then I don't know that that necessarily requires public noticing. However, if you are requesting a joint workshop, then we'll change the setup in the forum. And that would be better if you're all interested in going, or three or more of you obviously are going, and if you're giving input, in which case Carolee can orchestrate that with our staff, and we can publicize for a joint workshop.
Okay, then let me clarify, Mr. Rothschild, is that what you would like? Because I'm supportive of that if that's what you'd like to do.
I got approached by planning commissioners that said they'd like us to make an official meeting together so that, any issues we have that we can speak to them officially as a body, and not we show up in the audience or you show up in the audience or anything else.
If more than two of you were in the audience and you participated, then you're going to have a Brown Act violation if you don't do it as a special workshop. So I'd highly recommend a workshop if more than two of you want to.
All right, well, I'm in favor of that. How's the rest of the council feel?
Okay.
Okay? Okay. All right.
Then we'll set it up that way.
All right. Thanks. Thank you. Anything else?
All of us on the council are in the receipt of written communication from Councilmember Valles to staff, and there's been some exchanges back and forth. and I'm sure staff will respond. What I would like to agendize is the question of whether a single council member, without concurrence from others, can give direct orders and instruction to the city manager who works for all the council, and that one council member can demand that that city manager or his staff respond to that individual council member's demands and do it on a 15-day or a 30-day time schedule. I would like to agendize the question of whether individual council members can make those kind of demands. Is there any support for that?
All right, that's unanimous that we would agendize that. So that will be brought back before us. I have nothing at this time, so at this point we are adjourned. Oh, I'm sorry. We're not adjourned. Remembering we have two items, so let's go on to reports from council members. Sorry, Ms. Baez, I'll start with you.
I'd like to address Vicki Cabriales' comments regarding me being on the Hispanic Chamber. Yes, I was on the Hispanic Chamber for a number of years. That has nothing to do with knowing that the sponsors for the Hispanic Chamber were doing business with the city of Victorville. That has nothing to do with me knowing that Mr. Cabriales, Councilman Cabriales, was not recusing himself until I was actually elected to city council and sat next to him and realized what was going on, which I then reported it, which two legal opinions came forward and said that they found it was a conflict of interest and wanted to recommend it to a higher investigative body, which was the FPPC and now the AG's office, which I did. I find it very unfortunate and sad that Vicki and Rudy have to resort to intimidation, name-calling, and bullying tactics to try to keep or punish people like myself for coming forward and trying to do the right thing for the people. However, this does speak volumes of their character.
Please, no outbursts. Councilman Rothschild.
For those that applauded and those that spoke, you have no idea what character is. None.
All right, and I have no comments.
And Mr. Eklund, if I might, I know it's council reports, but I just would like to offer up, I know the city's facing budget issues, and my partner and I have decided, consistent with what city management has done, to reduce our hourly rate by 10% for a period of 6 months to hopefully also assist in the city's financial issues, starting June 1st.
Thank you. We greatly appreciate that. All right, with that, we are adjourned.
Thank you.